You, ladies and gentlemen, actually, I feel so honored because I almost cannot get my visa to this country. It's a really amazing trip for me. Today, I want to give you some presentation about intelligent transportation system based on the wireless sensor networks. Actually, you are finding the small title because as my original title, I changed it, so revise it. Because my method is based on the gradient parking navigation using a continuous information. So, well, that's my personal Google Scholar information because in this paper, for my personal, it's a milestone paper for me. Because you will find them at the H-index and Google Scholar. It's very lucky. My paper is, sorry for the Chinese characters, the screenshot. So this paper is the high cited and hard papers in the receiver systems. So, okay, that's the recent new dissertation for this paper. It is. For me, this paper is continue beyond the 19 months for the high citation paper in the Web of Science the systems. Okay, well, because I started the presentation, I should introduce some of the background about my title. Maybe nobody knows you're not familiar with the IoT, means the Internet of Things, such as the wireless sensor networks. Actually, whatever you wanted to say, any application about wireless sensor networks, you should consider the energy conservation. So, before we start, we should prepare the more consideration about the saving energy. So before I start this work, I do the previous work such as the cross-layer multi-rate slot preschedule method. That's my previous work for this paper. As we all know, so if we want energy conservation, we should do some lower layer energy conservation. And we find that if only to the protocol or algorithm to save energy, that's not enough. And then I started a new method, use the dynamic voltage adjusting and control policy to help us to save the energy again. So, well done. These two previous steps to accomplish that start our worker. So the background is the one I use this method to get the navigation. Assumption is in the multiple entrance in the building parking lots in the rush hour. So I help the users to find the lots of the free parking place. When you send a query for the parking lot. So for my method, I use the very traditional physical and mathematical function, information diffusion equation, to construct the field to reflect the real parking lot places. Okay, just a second. Wait a second. So I should say more once in details about this. Before the beginning. So for my assumptions, if in the parking lots we have the more parking places for users, it means at this place the information value is very high. They have enough attraction to help to attract the users that are going to the specific target. So opposite, if you have the lower and the smaller places for the users, that you can only have the lower attractive for the users. So just now as mentioned, because I should, sorry for my Chinese characters, so background, so as we all know, the wireless sensor networks deployed on the hundreds of the sensor nodes because the sensor nodes is very small and low cost. it can be used, sensor nodes should be the connection, the physical, maybe we know the CPS, the cyber physical systems, that we should get the bridge, the connectors, the physical and the real world. So that we find these the sensor nodes that can be used the following areas such as pollution control, transportation, electricity management, and biological protection. So hundreds of the sensor nodes that is deployed dynamically by the people. So we can find that these sensors that should find considers the following method, such as the cooperation, extended coverage, the fault tolerance, and extended lifetime. All of these the issues that should be considered when we start the application in wireless sensor networks. Basically, a sensor, the specific sensor is the tiny electronic device. It's made up of the four major sensor nodes, such as the sensing, process. Also, it needed some of the certain degree to working, and some of the processing and the communication parts. Also, that is why before the beginning, I mentioned again, the energy conservation is the first important for the research, because he used just the battery as should be the UC Berkeley, the first sensor node. So like this, they have the radio parts and the different sensor parts, the temperature, humidity, and the memory is limited. At the beginning, they only support the battery, 2 batteries. So we can find, because the sensors that can be overlapped, use the different multi-sensors per board. So we, based on this board, at this inch, so we can find is the different, the accelerator, temperature sensor, microphone, sounder, magnetometers. So this kind of the sensor is used to location or coordinations, but this is for detect the climate and some features. Just as I mentioned, because the sensor have the following character and features: low cost, quick deployed. So without not like the other networks, it do not need the fixed network support. They can help accomplish the monitoring task for a long time. So we can use these for industry, agriculture, and eventually assisted medical and special in China environment monitoring and protection as a big problem. For my method, so I use the very traditional physical differential equation to construct this information field, help when users send information query, help us to find where have the more parking lots, the places for users. Is based on the 2 steps. First is based on the diffusion equation, and the second use the Partition equation and propose the method to finish the information query and help the clients finish the navigation procedure. So my work is also compared with the Stony Brook, the Professor Gau's work. So basically, Professor Gau used a very interesting method. He used the harmonic function to construct the information field. The problem is that her method is very good, but the question is the computation cost is very hard, because if we use the harmonic function to construct the information field, it must satisfy at the same time the 2 boundaries, the Newman boundary and the Dirichlet boundary. So that's, if just now mentioned, I introduced the background about the sensor. The sensor is a very small and battery equipment. If we use this so small device to do the complex the calculation, as they're very heavy, it will exhaust the energy in short time. So just repeat again, I used the different method to prepare the energy conservation, and then I use the information field constructor. So in this way, so if I want to construct the parking lots, so I reflect the real parking lots, the places to a simulated information field. So in this way, during these procedures, I use the model reduction and help the conflicts decrease. Actually, compared with the previous method, we can help find to reduce the computation level from the second order to first order. Just I mentioned that because based on the Professor Gauss, the method computation is very heavy. Based on her method, it has another problem. Although her methods can calculate the very specific places, but the question is her method always help users to go to the accurate and small places for users. For example, in the real scenarios, the users, if two users, because in the real world, in a building parking lot, the multiple entrance, so when you send an inquiry in the rush hour, so everybody is busy for walking. So everybody is driving, so want to find the closer and the lower layer places for parking vehicles. Everybody sends the query can find is close to the entrance. But the question is, if two users find or three users find the closer one place for the two or three users. Finally, based on their personal driving, so there are only one users that can get this place. As I say, the other two users will lost. They will send the global searching again, and it's a big waste. It's a conflict. It's bigger conflicts. So for me, my personal, I hate the driving. I'm a bad driver. Hey, for me, every time I will lose the find is the go to places for me. So based on our methods, we can improve the higher probability. So such as I can guide the three users to the parking places for the two free parking places. But finally, there are only one user lost the chance. Only one user should find to send the global searching again. So our loss rate is only 33%. So compared with the previous work, it have at least the failure rate at least 50%. So like this, because this example just for whatever your parking lot at the building parking lot or the flat parking lot, it doesn't matter. When users enter into the first time to enter into the new parking lot, they will ask the questions. Please help me, take me to the free spot. Help me find this good spot for me. So just now I forgot to mention a very important point, because as we know, whatever you enter into the parking lot, free building parking lots, they are very strong hidden diffusion, means that the wireless signals is forbidden by buildings. So in the real buildings. That is why we deploy the lots of the multiple sensors in every parking lot in places. So we use the sensors to get and collect the used or not used the parking information for users. Because in the flat parking lots, the question is the drivers that sit in a car, we cannot by our eyesight to find so where I can find the free spot. in the building parking lots, we cannot use the wireless combination. Maybe you can say, oh, we have the GPS. Oh, we do not need it this way. So, but actually, you cannot, because wireless signal is so bad in the parking lot building. So, the next question is, so how many free spaces before I get to the query? I want to know. So if a bad driver, so I must say, okay, I give up. I cancel the first floor, the easier parking places. I just want to find maybe the higher layer, so the more probability for the parking places. I forget it. So, well, just use this method, my method, to it's really process such as the information discovery in the dynamic environment I just mentioned, because in the rush hour, in the parking lot buildings, the parking place is a dynamic changed. Somebody used, somebody parking, somebody living in the multiple entrance, so in the rush hour time. So it's a distribute information to collect, and you should get a response to the queries and collections. So use this method to construct information field to finish information diffusion. Compared with the previous method, it's better efficiently supports information collecting. So just I mentioned, compared with the Professor Stony Brook University's team, they do that the building. Actually, whatever this method using the flat parking lots and the building parking lots that are simulated this way is the climbing procedures. Based on our common sense, that when we go travel in some scenic spot, so if we want to go to one summit to another summit, the best way is we go along the mountain ridge. For the mathematical purpose, because if we go along this mountain ridge, we base the gradient the direction to go. That is why we find from here to here, we go along the ridge. Go along the ridge, the main reason, because in mathematical perspective is strictly based on the gradient descent direction. That is why this way is the optimized method. We can save the energy. We can use the small energy, small time to reach the target, to go to the final summit. Different colors, meaning the red color stand for at this place we have the more parking places for users. Here, that place is the more attractive for the users. And then the blue, it means that at that place only have the small quantities, the parking free places for users. It's just a show example. Freely to get only 5 points, I just assumed the 5 points because in the real experiments, it's not like this. It's just the assumptions that if I dynamic select the 5 points, you will find the value. Different value stand for the different places, the probability for parking. The higher value stand for at this place is we have the more values for the parking. We just select the 2 points. The first, the biggest value 5. Second is smallest value 1. We can find this 4 paragraphs. 4 photos that is related to real scenarios that we can find at this point, 5. It means here the host the most attractive for users. We can find look at this photo. It means all of the information stream attracted into this node, but very few, if you're carefully to look at this picture, very carefully the information stream will out this node, but most of the information field will enter into this method. And the second point is here. The value is 1. It means at this place, the very few parking places for users. We can find it's the lower attractive for users. Most of the information stream is leave out these points. Very few information is attracted into this value. Very interesting. This photo as the previous worker reflects the real information field. We can find 1, the value, it means the probability. When the value is the 1, the previous worker and the simulation cannot reflect the real scenario because the information level is down. But based on my methods, we can try our best to find at least we can help, although there only the value is the 1, is very small, but our method can help users find these easier places for users. We can try our best to provide every places, whatever in the far and higher player for users, even in the very close to the entrance, there's the only one place, parking place for users. We can help the information level is up, not down. That's contribution for our paper for website. As I just mentioned, I simulate the fucking to finding the places for users. It's a climbing procedures from one side to another side to the you will find to maybe is the one summit to another summit or the one point to another point. Is the real direction is the base is basically go along the mountain ridge. So in this field, the experiments that we find is the when the sensor nodes improved, calculation. I mean, is special for the iteration calculations. We can find although the number of methods improve, but we can control the iterations, the calculations, in some balance. It do not improve dramatically. At the same time, so when the sensor nodes that deploy the density is increased, gradually from 0.2 to it's a probability. It's a probability because the density is a probability from 1.2 to 1.8. We can find this curve is also increased slowly, not dramatically. We can also control the iteration calculations. That is our method. Compare the previous method. The old method can only help the users to find the specific places. But for our methods, we can help the users to go to the more probability parking places for users. It also actually, to some extent, our method to lose some accuracy. So, because we overcomes the two constraints. The first is the Newman boundary. Second is the Dirichlet boundary. So you cannot get every good point. So when you lose something, you can get some. At the same time, you can get another things. So that's in the summit. I expanded the pictures, so we can find help the navigation users to higher information areas from this point to the summit point. It's the climbing procedures related to the simulation procedure. So actually, we can imagine in the big parking lot buildings, we have different layers, the different areas. So every layers that we have find the different quantities for the parking places. The different points shows that we use help the user to find the satisfied and determined location by the information node. So because even in the one layer, so also exists the different parking places quantities. We just provide the users to do the selection. As I beginning mentioned, actually our method is the two-step. First is large scale. Second is the small scale. In the large scale, we use the diffusion equation help user to go to the level. And the second, when you reach the specific level, we help user to find the specific location. I mean the specific parking places. That's both of these procedures are also strictly based on the gradient descent method. So in our papers, the contribution is we combined the diffusion equation and the variation method and partial equation into the navigation procedure to make this process more easier and efficient. To scale the smooth information gradient in this environment, I mean it's the wireless sensor network, so they can help user to guarantee the user find their own one satisfied the places. So use this method, we can find in a global area, we can use the more efficiently method to construct the information field. It can reflect the local information level well. So the second is propose the variation method to can construct the smooth information field. Information field, in the second step, it can be determined the partial equation accurate since because every sensor node with a specific value. Because at the beginning I told we before do the experiment, so we deployed every sensor node in the parking lots everywhere, so we can collect the information to monitor the parking place is used or not used by users that can efficiently reflect the real conditions for the parking condition. The gradient descent method can help user to go to the final target. And then finally, at the beginning I mentioned, actually I used the partial differential equation. It's the information diffusion equation. It's a very traditional physical equation. It's seldom to use the navigate, help user find the places. Until now, I only find three authors that use the heat diffusion equation to do something in the computer science. First is the Stony-Brook, is a simulation to navigation, and the second in China at Vilnius University, but this professor used the same heat diffusion equation. They use the classification for the big shopping mall to the classification the products, to classify the products. How can we find the good places for the classified products? There's only 3 persons that use the heat diffusion equations. Compared with the old method, so we can characterize on fitful the information field. Our method can more consider the local area and more concern the local balance and the local conflict. As I mentioned, so my method can help the users find more probability for the users. To some extent, it can avoid the competence. Because in the wireless sensor nodes, the sensor networkers, we deployed hundreds of sensors in the building, plus the source data dynamically changes. Every node information always changes, so we should collect it and update the information level as soon as possible. Using expand diffusion equation, more different information can be integrated together. That's the 3rd contributions. So thanks. As my presentation story for my because I'm still hurry to prepare these slides. Maybe some Chinese characters and some the presentation is not correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have seen a great presentation of idea for parking slots and moving in the city. And I was wondering if we can also transfer some idea of this technology, for example, to drones. Because now let's say some flying objects are very new topic, and the traffic is also very dense on the ground, but also it's becoming very dense in the sky. So have you tried to do any research on this kind of technology for drones or any other flying objects?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. Every time when the other professor asks me the similar questions, the big problem, I also want to help myself and help others to use this method to the real scenarios. The big problem is that I had asked the others that if I want to deploy my method to the real scenarios, the first big problem is money. Because if I want to use this method to the real scenario, I asked for the company. The first equipment about very expensive, about 100 million equipment for the reader, laser reader dictions that you should put for the car. For my master's, it's only just a try in the theoretical method. It's only based on the mathematical method. All of the results, it's just the simulation. It's not implementation. Sorry. I also hope my method can be used in the real scenario. Thank you.
Any more questions?
So, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. So first of all, I have yet another guy who is also using partial equations, partial differential equations to model traffic in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So Netherlands is a very small country with many people and even more cars.
Yeah.
And they waste a lot of time like traveling.
Waste a lot. Yeah.
So there is one PhD. I mean, he's probably not a professor, but about 10 years ago he did his PhD dissertation on modeling the traffic flow with help of differential equations, and the task was to optimize the time wasted in traffic jams, right? So I think that's very relevant. So my question is about this gradient descent, because you said that this is the shortest path if you follow
shortest path.
Actually, it should be gradient ascent because you go up and down, but okay, that's nothing. But in neural networks, for example, you want to optimize. You have to find an optimal function of many variables, and you also use gradient descent. But it is known that if you would use the second information about the second of the derivatives of the target function, then you could reach the optimum much faster, 10 to 100 times faster. So I wonder if that does make sense to think about the second order solutions to your problem.
You mean?
You know, if you have a function, if you find the optimal function, right? You follow the gradient descent in a number of steps, you find the minimum. But if you use second order.
Okay, I told you why. It's just because in this, sorry. I know your meaning. Second order to first order.
I mean conjugate gradient algorithm.
Okay.
There are several versions of this algorithm.
Yeah. I told you why. Because we use the. Let me find it. Contributions. There should be. My question. I answer you. So because we based on the simulation method, we repeated the Professor Gauss the calculations. Because in the reduction model, we compare the calculation level. We find it's just simulated. We find if only to this level, we find the computation level is almost seems like from the second order to the first order, because she used the harmonic function to construct information, but I used the heat diffusion equation and the Paschen equation to construct totally and the Laplace equation, and a totally different method. Use our method, so we overcome we reduce the two boundaries. The first is the Newman boundary, and the second the lower boundary. That is why I use the method from the second order to the first order, because we overcome the two constraints. The first is Newman boundary. We decrease. The second is the Dirichlet boundaries. That is why I said if you use our method to calculate, we do not consider these boundaries. We just use the very quickly and efficiently to calculate to construct the information field. That's my answer. So I know your meaning. It's just the thoughts. Let me show you. Yeah, here. At the beginning, I said because we use the method. At the beginning, I cannot use the heat diffusion equation and the Paschen equation and the Laplace equation to construct the information field. During the simulation process, we find we can use the different ways to construct the information field, not use the harmonic function, because as we all know, if we use the harmonic function to construct, the constraint is very strictly. They must satisfy the two constraints. The first is the Newman boundary, and the second is the Dirichlet boundary. But here, we do not consider these two boundaries. That is why I said we can, by the simulation results, we can find that the compilation level is from second order to the first order, because use the different method to construct the information field. That actually seems like the model reduction. It also helps conflicts decrease. Actually, I still continue this work. It also exists more invalid information field, such as when you find the shortest path, it will happen what path. So the car will cross the wall and cross the ceiling. In our information field, in this paper, we do not to reduce these similar scenarios. In the later our paper, we will consider to delete some of the unreal situations, such as the cross the wall, because find the path, you will find not go along the real path. You will find, because the shortest path, you will find that go straight to the ceiling, go to the wall. That is why I see explanation. Thank you. It's very good questions. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your
Thank you
excellent
so much.
presentation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
A small gift for you.
Okay, thank you. It is great honor for me. Thank you to share with my ideas for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will continue with regular sessions after the conference.
Presentation is not here?
Yeah, it's here. It's exactly down here.
It's down here?
This is mine.
Ah, that is yours.
Yeah, this is mine.
Because
Okay. This is mine.
okay, good. Okay. This is not working. Wonderful. Now? Hello? And cancel. I have no idea how this will work. So I need technical assistance. Okay. So, that easy. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, I think we should start. And the problem is the first presentation on investigation on the dependencies between HRV and will not be here, as far as I can see. Someone here? No. Not registered? Good. So we will start with the second presentation, which is a mobile platform for fatigue evaluation, HRV analysis. And our three authors, the speaker is Matis Erinch. And please go ahead, show us what is behind, explain where you're coming from, because I learned you're from Riga. And then let's see how to continue. Do you know something about the first presentation?
I know that they are from Lithuania. Probably from Kaunas.
Yeah, but this is also between each HRV, so it might be that you have some connections to them, no?
Exactly. We might have common point.
Yeah?
Yes, but we are from IT world.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Physiological, we are the connection.
Okay. So please come here, your presentation is there, and start.
So hello everyone. My name is Matis. I'm from Riga Technical University. I am currently a PhD student working with automation, like automation, but that's not the most primary field or topic of my research currently. I'm also a scientific assistant in Riga Technical University and giving lectures about automation, robotics. But this topic is clearly not about that. So our faculty is actively working together with biotechnologies group and also with a couple of partners in Lithuania. So in the current project, which is Eureka project, I will show you it later, there is a common part for all of us to create this mobile platform for human fatigue evaluation. And the current paper is about research of HRV analysis and the methods of filtering the signal processing. In order to get to these parameters, which we need from human physiology to actually feed into the platform for later decision making. So the team of partners is currently two sides. So from Lithuania, there are a couple of institutions working more with athlete physiological exercise, and there is a Lithuanian sports university, Kaunas University of Technology, taking part here. And from Latvia side, there are two groups, Riga Technical University and Integris, a company which is responsible for IT solutions and hardware prototyping. And this whole thing together comes with a Eureka project. So this paper has 3 authors, 2 authors from Kaunas and 1 author from Riga, and so this is like our common work, how we could work together. So the problem, the topicality is about human fatigue. So human fatigue manifests as decreased workability, drowsiness. These are the key indicators that will show the work efficiency. It actually impact the work efficiency and the safety. And the main areas of interest are transportation, sports, healthcare, and different operations. The current project is more related to operations and office work and IT-related work, like more closer to mental fatigue. But the previous work from Lithuania's partners is more related to sports medicine, to athletes' fatigue, and our work from Riga Technical University more related to transportation, drowsy drivers, and this topic. So yeah, let's go on. In the current work, we are using this concept of how to evaluate fatigue. So fatigue is basically like a huge concept or a term, and we are looking for manifestations of fatigue. And in this work, our kind of thesis is that, for instance, drowsiness or decreased workability or decreased performance is like the consequence, or more likely like an indication of fatigue. So fatigue can manifest in different forms, like physical fatigue, sensorial, emotional fatigue, and yeah. So we need to bring it together in order to kind of form some kind of model, so that we can do decision making later. So in order to do our experiments and in order to do create like a framework for it, we are going after this World Health Organization concept, where we have fatigue defined in basically three perspectives, like subjective, objective, and physiological. So subjective is all the questionnaires, all the sleep history, everything that the subject can submit from his perspective, her perspective. And objective is more or less related to some results, some performance, some test results, some games, some physical activity, performance evaluation that is more or less considered objective. And then we have a physiological measurement which we need to do when these, like in combination with these two previous, in order to evaluate our to bond our physiological measurement results with these objective and subjective results. And that's how we base our measurement and experiment methodology. So we are doing all of these three perspectives together, together with multi-parameter physiological measurements. For instance, obtaining as many sensor data readings from within the same exercise from this same subject who is performing these objective and subjective evaluations as well. So then some math and statistics can be applied. Okay. Yeah, and here's like so yeah, this physiological fatigue responds more or less to some body functions and structure. Without any activity, without doing anything, we cannot evaluate how fatigue manifests. It will be like there will be some fatigue just from body functioning, but then we won't be able to evaluate how much this activity will affect it. So we need this perspective, and of course the classical methods also used in, for instance, aviation, where just subjects are being questioned about how they feel. They could also, these results also can be, they can also lie and provide false results because they're clearly subjective, but these methods are like the oldest ones that exist to evaluate, for instance, the level of drowsiness or the amount of sleep. Then in this paper we were closely working with this electrocardiography. So the point here was to obtain a common point from like medical equipment and what we call as wearables for like consumer market. And the common point is to also, both of these provide some parameters which we can analyze in order to evaluate human fatigue based on heart rate readings, but the methods are different, but the methods need to be combined together in order for one to help evaluate other and for both to have the common data. And in order to do this, we need, for instance, to start with the electrocardiography and then extract these parameters which we need further to feed into the platform. And for instance, in this paper, we were looking closer at the parameters which we can extract directly from heart rate, pulse, photoplethysmography sensors, and indirectly from ECG. So these were considered to be standard deviations and Poincaré plots, which we looked at in this paper. So Poincaré diagram looks like this. Probably who has worked with these measurements definitely know this type of analysis, and this type of analysis helps us to, in time, to see how this heart rate to heart rate interval changes over time, and it allows us to project these data points with geometry, various forms of geometry, like for instance an ellipse, centroid, and so these can vary and change over time. And for instance, for this research, we were using athlete data to check how this change of this ellipsoid changes over the time of and over the intensity of this exercise. So yeah, and in order to obtain legitimate data from these sensors during these exercises, we of course need to again stumble with these problems when there are a lot of motion artifacts. And for instance, here we observed some of these functions which will allow us to filter out these artifacts and to correlate them, or to correlate them, to correct them. And then we see that mostly during this active stage we have a lot of artifacts which overall produce us worse readings. Yep. So these are three functions which we tried out and applied in our research in one phase where we just filter out these artifacts. And then we are also looking at the spectrogram. And you can see here that from data which are obtained from ECG, we see a lot of changes in the spectrogram, especially during the high intensity stage. So for instance, in this paper, we were using a protocol where we were using this time like 5-phase distribution. So there is a before training phase, then there is low intensity exercise, again resting phase, then again high intensity exercise, and then recovery. And yeah, so in the upper image it's showing these error intervals over the time, and here is the spectrogram. So you can see in the high intensity stage there's especially a lot of change there, and also there are a lot of artifacts. And so part, not me directly, but part of our group is working specifically with this denoising, with this artifact removal. So Egle here, sitting here, is also our co-author. She can more describe and inform about how these methods are applied. So basically, we are also working with one method that can extract noise from one electro-based, potential-based parameter gathering method, and then apply this filter to another one. For instance, getting artifacts from the ECG method and then apply it to EEG method, so that we can get signals clear. So yeah, these are some results, and so conclusions. First of all, the signal artifact correction recordings is very important for analysis and understanding of the way how human body works. This is just one direction, which can indicate just one physiological sensor, which can indicate human fatigue. It is very commonly used in these wearable sensors in every platform, and of course they have the huge problem of denoising the signal. Among others, we are looking at EEG and GSR, or skin conductance change. And here in this particular work, the different algorithms with adaptive parameters to identify and extract artifacts. These adaptive parameters were applied, and then we were calculating afterwards. We were calculating the parameters which we need. So from our previous work, it is that if you try to work with some method which is proven to be working, you often find that there are some small nuances which are not told, and then at the end you don't get the same result. So this paper was more or less to clarify the flow of how the methodology and the flow how we are doing this signal analysis step by step, which filters, which algorithms are better in each step, and we were doing this after reworking several publications where this unfortunately was not told. So for me, for instance, as a person who is interested in the later step in decision making, it's very important to get a proper signal, properly cleared, understand how it's obtained, so that we can use a wider variation of devices which in theory can provide this same signal. So yeah. So the future work should contain HRV algorithm implementation in this mobile system. But in order to obtain, to work with these algorithms, we need to clear these signals out and define these flows of how we obtain these signals for each of the type. This is just HRV analysis. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, nice presentation.
Okay.
And floor is open for some questions, discussion. You can also ask the other author here. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Well, you just mentioned that you are working a little bit in the field of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. So the fatigue of the drivers is quite a big cause of losses in the transport.
Exactly.
Area. And here but I think it's you can hardly say that fatigue of the drivers is related to physical work. You made an experiment here.
So about
can you try to find something in that direction?
Actually, my opinion about transportation and fatigue is that, of course, it's very important, but it's very hard to prove that actually this was the cause. it's also a bit of a problem, because you can easily see that cause of an accident was alcohol usage, but for instance, to tell that the person was completely asleep, the person itself can tell, for instance, if it's a micro sleep, it can be also noticed subjectively. So there should be some like objective measure for this. And for every operation that we do, we can evaluate how we perform it by using the tool itself, right? So the car itself is a tool, and there exists a lot of research around, especially like decision making in sensors in cars. So to obtain features from every part, we have like gas pedal, steering wheel, our sitting position, direction on the road. That is one tool which we can kind of evaluate, but it's a bit different when we need to evaluate, for instance, a factory worker, which is having different environment, having different tools which he can use. You can, for instance, some workers cannot use like smart watches or something on their body. They have different wearables to get the sensors from, and it changes again where we get the signal from, because we can measure the same kind of potential from different places, but the methods will be different, and some of them will be more or less informative against our problem, like against the fatigue. So yeah, that is kind of, so for this kind of specific project, our most experiments are on office workers and involve mental fatigue. So like to evaluate that the person starts to perform worse at tasks which demand some brain power. And of course, it's not the same as you are overworked in a gym, so it's like physical fatigue. You cannot work on computer, right? You can work. It's a different type of fatigue, and it affects the performance differently. So for every, like, I think for every domain of this application, it's a separate specifics of this fatigue concept. But here we are trying to sketch like a framework or like an approach that is common for all of these types. Yes, that is.
But how will you get from office workers your signals?
From office workers?
Yeah. What signals are typical?
For office workers, we start with more or less laboratory setup. So these are physiological sensors. There is like a measurement laboratory setup, like a Nexus box with 20 channels of measurement. And at the same time, we are doing this biofeedback measurement. So a test can be created for this person on a computer. And then while the person is performing this activity, this biofeedback sensor set is recording what it can obtain. So the key here is to, of course, get those signals at the same time, but then we have to also take in mind that some of these cannot be combined, some of them cannot be placed where we need to. And yeah, the application strongly defines actually the constraints for our sensor. Yes, that is not a universal way that we can say that this method always can measure this same.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
But you said you will collect data for later decision making.
Yes.
Which way of decision making? Any method you are
about
planning?
decision making? Currently, I'm personally involved in fuzzy logic. I'm very interested in this topic. So, because a lot of fatigue-related variables are expressed in a fuzzy form, you know, with not strict boundaries, and these values, you can make a decision as a human would do, more closer to that, and fuzzy logic controllers are more or less understandable, so you can see how decision is made. It's more or less clear. It's harder to obtain, like to follow what, for instance, a deep learning algorithm does, but fuzzy logic is more or less clear. So this is the way of decision making here. Of course, it's first of all calculation of every component of fatigue. So, for instance, the mental fatigue, the physical fatigue, and then aggregation together, like an overall fatigue, which is the next step. So, yeah, that is in short.
More questions? No. So, but I think we have some more time at the end until the lunch break. So, if there is a question, third person to you, the floor is open here afterwards.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a moment. I have a certificate for you. For your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming here. Okay, so now let's see how to. Oops! I'm trying to find your presentation now. Yeah, it should be there, but.
Okay, it's excuse me, it's here.
It's on there. This one.
Yeah, this one. This one.
No.
Yeah, this one. One moment, okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So let's come to the next presentation on stress level assessment based on social, demographic, and gender factors among Polish and Taiwanese female and male junior dental students. This sounds a little bit strange. Polish and Taiwanese.
Yeah, because we have English division in our.
It doesn't matter, that's a problem, but you see, there are different cultures, and Polish is European, is Asian, so I think it's interesting to do so. And the speaker is Katarzyna Mosny-Pachonska. Pachonska, yeah, a little bit. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I will. Okay, so dear colleague, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I would like to give a presentation about the stress level assessment based on socio-demographic and gender factors among Polish and Taiwanese female and male junior dental students. The presentation was co-authored by many authors because I am a dentist and we need a support from the University of Technology. So the study work was conducted in our Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics in Medical University of Silesia and the Silesian University of Technology Department of Biosensor and Biomedical Signal Processing. So stress, dentists are prone to professional burnout, anxiety disorders and clinical depression owing to the nature of clinical practice and the personality traits common among those who decide to pursue careers in dentistry. The professional stress is beginning in dental school, unfortunately, and this stress can have a negative impact on their personal and professional lives, in particular with regard to the quality of their subsequent clinical work. The aim of our study was to assess the perceived levels of sources of stress for Polish female and male dental junior students who study in Polish and compare the results of those students with Taiwanese female and male junior students who study in English, which is not their native language. So during the experiments, blink occurrence, its speed and strength, vertical and horizontal eye movement and head movement, rotational, pitch and yaw were assessed. The procedure was done by the usage of the special glass, Jim's meme, eye sensing for researchers device. The device is equipped with 3-point electrooculography and 6-axis and accelerometer and a gyroscope. In order to acquire data, the subject needs only to wear the device. GPS smartwatch Garmin Vivo Active 3 was used to measure the heart rate. That device has a heart rate sensor located on its back, which enables to measure current heart rate in beats per minute, which is displayed on the watch in a form of a graph. So the study was conducted on 20 Polish and Taiwanese students on the third year of dental division of Salesian Medical University in Katowice, who were divided into equal 4 groups. The first one, Polish female junior students. It was five women. Polish male junior students, 5 men as well. Taiwanese female junior students, 5 women, and Taiwanese male junior students, 5 men. And the Taiwanese students were included to examine the influence of communicating in English as an additional stressor, because English it's not their native language. So all the participants of the experiment received precise information about the task to be performed. So in the first stage, the students were asked to fill in a test composed of 5 questions regarding the knowledge, basic knowledge, from the 3rd-year dentistry students, and there was time limitation. They should do it in 5 minutes. Then students from all groups were asked to perform a task of preparing a cavity in a standard phantom tooth in type of molar tooth 3/6. It's the company producing these teeth are Frasaco from Germany, and in limited or non-limited time. And then each student used the same type of the burr and the same handpiece. We call it turbine. It's very high-speed handpiece. So with 350,000 revolutions per minute. A model tooth with prepared cavity was prepared by the usage of 3D printer. It was Formlabs 2, and the characteristics of the model are as follows on the slide. So print time of this tooth was almost 57 hours. So on this slide, you can see that the white tooth is this white printed tooth, and on the right we can see the cavity which was made by students. So the shape on the white tooth, we can see the matrix of the cavity, and on the right there are the exemplary, of course, because we have more scans. These were made by students, so the shape is not always the same as the matrix. So here you can see that this is a Taiwanese female student, and she's now preparing the cavity. The glasses are wireless, so it's very easy to use it. And on the right side there are the phantom teeth. And the test, Polish students and female and men were given all the information regarding the test in their native language, in Polish, while the test prepared for the Taiwanese students was in English, which is the second language. So now here are the results. So the average time of filling the test in Polish female junior students was 2 minutes and 11 seconds. And we made a decision that 60% of proper answer can give a satisfactory mark. So in this group, 2 good marks. There were 2 good marks, 1 satisfactory, and unfortunately 2 students failed. In the Polish male junior students, there were 2 good marks and 1 satisfactory, and 2 failed tests. And the average time of filling was 2 minutes and 13 seconds. In the Taiwanese female junior students group, the average time of writing was 2 minutes, so they are very fast. And students obtained 2 good marks, 2 satisfactory marks, and 1 student failed. And in Taiwanese male junior students, there were 4 good marks and 1 satisfactory. And the average time of filling the test was 2 minutes and 25 seconds. The analysis of the heart rate has shown no statistically significant difference between the groups. However, higher heart rate was observed in women. And the heart rate was measured before the procedure started, shaping tour of writing a test, and after they were finished. So here are the values of in the men group. And data from electrography marked as age, I will maybe, one moment. age, the data from electrography marked as age, describe the movement of eyeballs in horizontal axis, right-left, while marked in view as V describes the movement vertically, so up and down. And the mean for substance signals from genes spectacles for women who deal only with tooth shaping generally didn't exceed 100. And signal from the accelerometer, the signal amplitude for women given to the test is almost 30% greater than the group of women who were not given a stressful stress in form of the test. So the values for the writing a test were higher than the values for shaping a tooth. So we can we can observe that the higher amplitudes of the signals were in women, both Taiwanese and Polish in comparison to men. And assuming the level of significance that alpha is 0.1, for which the accepted value is 1.65, it can be told that the means marked with underlining present statistically significant difference in groups. So these are the significant values. And when we take that the level of significance is 0.2, the values, significant values are bold. So these are the significant values. And here are the exemplary graphs from the glasses. We want to show you how it looks like. So on the right side are the graphs from shaping a tooth, and from the left side is writing a test. So we can see that the amplitude is higher in the part of writing a test. So it was in every group. So this is for the Polish female junior students. These graphs are for the Polish men junior students, for one person, of course. And this is the Taiwanese female junior students, and these are the Taiwanese male junior students. So our conclusions are that both Polish and Taiwanese female students were more prone to stressful situations than male students. And therefore, students filling in the test was more stressful than the practical part of the research. So, thank you, and...
Okay. Thank you as well. And you have small groups only?
Yes, because we have only these five person.
This sometimes is a statistical problem.
Yeah, I know, but it was the pilot study, and we just want to see.
So the system is working.
Yeah, it was.
And you will continue with bigger groups? Or?
Yeah, we want to continue.
Good, yeah. Questions? No question. Good. To measure stress is always a problem.
Yeah, it's always a problem. So we try to create maybe a scale, but I don't know if there will be possible. We want to see.
And what does it mean that the students have more stress when doing a test?
Yeah.
Is there any reason for that?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe this is, always it was writing or exam or writing a test. It might be more stressful than drilling.
Okay.
But have you tried to separate those who successfully write the test and those who fail? So maybe those who successfully pass the test, they don't have stress.
Yes, maybe this is a good idea, but we didn't divide it. So I know what you mean, but we didn't study this. Yeah, so
some
this
people,
is a good point. Yes.
Some people are.
More prone.
Know about stress, and as far as I can see, from my school age to the school age of my grandchildren now, there's a big difference.
Yes.
We have less stress because we are, but they have really,
yes.
They know when the test will be, and
Yeah, but there is a lot of literature that is saying that dental study in the dental division is medical is very stressful, because there is a lot. you know, we have to treat the patient, and so it's very, for the beginners, it's very, very
Yeah, but if
stressful.
you're working with a phantom only, I think that's...
No, this was phantom,
This
but
was
our
phantom,
students,
yeah.
they are working also with normal people, I mean patient, yeah, so it can be very stressful at the beginning, of
At
course.
the beginning, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, what was your role in this?
You know, I conducted the study. I mean, I had these glasses, and
Yeah.
I organized all the. I didn't not analyze. I didn't opracować or analyze the results. I mean, the statistics. So I was responsible more for the dentist.
Okay, good. Yeah, thank you. And I should have a certificate for you as well.
Yeah, thank you.
No, this is not the right one. This is the right one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you for coming here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And will you report next time more what going on
yes.
with that?
Yeah, I would like to. I would try. I don't know what.
Yeah, but then the Taiwanese people are speaking Polish now.
No, I think no, because we choose the Taiwanese because they have problems also with English language. They don't speak. I'm not telling that I'm speaking fluently, but they don't speak fluently English at all. There are only few persons who are speaking good, and they are translating in Chinese, you know, and this is very, very complicated. So we thought that writing and test in English can be also very stressful for them because they don't
just to understand.
Yeah, just to understand the task. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
must have here.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so questions are possible now directly to the authors because we still have time. And thank you for coming here. And I don't know, we should have next year maybe even a bigger session. Let's try how to do it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.